room 6 at the Desert Pines Motel. It was just after midnight when I pulled off the highway and saw the glowing neon sign, Desert Pines Motel Vacancy. The sign flickered as if it were struggling to stay alive, buzzing with a sickly hum that cut through the night air. I'd been driving for almost 11 hours straight, and the long stretch of Nevada highway was starting to blur in my vision. My eyelids were heavy, my throat dry, and my back ached from the car seat. I told myself that any bed, no matter how cheap or run down, would be better than another night of pushing through. The gravel parking lot crunched under my tires as I pulled up. The motel looked exactly like something out of a roadside crime documentary. One long strip of faded stucco, the paint peeling like dry skin, doors lined in a row, each with a tarnished brass number nailed into it. A few old sedans were scattered in the lot, one of them covered in dust like it hadn't moved in months. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and desert sage. I parked near the office, where a fluorescent light flickered behind greasy glass. Inside, a man sat slouched behind the counter. He was wiry, with thinning hair slicked back and skin the color of wax paper. When I walked in, a little bell above the door jingled, startling him awake. He looked at me like he hadn't seen another human in weeks. "Need a room?" His voice was raspy, like dry leaves scraping against the ground. "Yeah," I said, "just for one night. Something quiet." He chuckled at that, a short, dry laugh. "They're all quiet here." I slid my credit card across the counter. He glanced at it but didn't bother running it through a machine, just scribbled something in a large, tattered ledger. Then he reached under the counter and placed a tarnished brass key on the counter. Not a card, but an actual key, with a chipped red plastic tag that read 6, room 6. He muttered, "Middle of the row, don't lose the key." I hesitated, my thumb brushing the ridges of the tag. "Do you have Wi-Fi?" That got another laugh, this one darker. "Wi-Fi? Out here?" "No, son. Just 4 walls and a bed. That's all anyone ever needs." I thanked him, though uneasily, and made my way to room 6. The door creaked when I unlocked it, groaning like it hadn't been opened in years. Inside, the air was stale, tinged with mildew, and something faintly metallic, like rust. A single yellow bulb buzzed overhead, casting the room in a sickly glow. The carpet was worn thin, dark stains scattered across it. The bed sagged in the middle, and the floral comforter looked like it had been there since the 1970s. I set my bag down, locked the door, and immediately checked the bathroom. The light flickered when I turned it on, revealing cracked tiles and a mirror with black spots creeping across the glass. The shower curtain was stiff, yellowed with age. I told myself I'd seen worse. All I needed was rest. But as I lay down, something about the silence gnawed at me. Motels usually had some background noise, the hum of a TV through the walls, voices outside, the occasional car pulling in. Here, it was just nothing. No crickets, no wind, no hum of an AC unit, just dead air at around 1:30 a.m. I woke suddenly, not from a dream, from a sound. It was faint, muffled, but unmistakable. A knock, not on my door, but from somewhere, inside the walls. I sat up in bed, straining my ears. A second knock came, slower this time, followed by a dragging sound, like someone's hand sliding across plaster. I tried to convince myself it was plumbing, maybe old pipes expanding. But then, I heard it again, 3 sharp raps, almost deliberate. And this time, it was directly behind the headboard. I got up, my hands clammy, and pressed my ear to the wall. For a long moment, there was nothing. Just silence. Then a whisper. It wasn't words, not exactly, more like a hiss of breath. But I swear I felt it, warm against the thin barrier separating me from whatever was on the other side. I stumbled back, heart pounding. I grabbed my keys, deciding I'd leave. I didn't care how tired I was. But when I pulled the door open, I froze. The hallway was empty, but on the door across from mine, smeared in what looked like dried brown streaks, was a handprint, long fingers, too long, stretching almost halfway down the door. I backed into my room and locked the door again, my breath shallow. I turned off the light, thinking maybe darkness would hide me. But then, from the bathroom, the shower curtain rustled. I hadn't touched it. I crept forward, every step deliberate, until I stood in the doorway. The curtain swayed gently as though someone had just slipped behind it. My throat tightened. My shaking hand reached forward, grabbed the edge and yanked it aside. Nothing, just cracked tiles and an empty tub. But when I turned back toward the bed, I froze. The bed was no longer empty. The comforter sagged in the middle, as if someone or something was lying beneath it. I didn't scream. I don't even think I breathed. I bolted. I unlocked the door and ran full tilt across the parking lot, jumped into my car, and tore out of that motel without looking back. When I reached the next gas station, I told the clerk what had happened. He gave me a strange look and said, "You stayed at Desert Pines? That place has been closed for years. Burned down in '98. Only the sign still works." I never went back to check. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, I still hear that faint knocking in the walls. The girl in room 12. It was close to 11:45 p.m. when I pulled off the interstate, bone-tired and half-delirious from caffeine. I'd been driving from Oklahoma to Arizona, hauling equipment for a job that started the next morning. My boss had told me to grab a motel somewhere along the way rather than risk falling asleep at the wheel, and I finally gave in when my eyes started burning every time I blinked. That's how I ended up at the Highland Motor Lodge, a run-down 2-story motel on the edge of a small town, whose name I can't even remember. Its faded sign leaned slightly to the left, buzzing with a neon hum. Only a few cars dotted the lot. The air was cool, with a hint of rain in it. I remember pulling my jacket tighter and muttering, "Just one night. Just sleep." The front office was lit by a single desk lamp. Behind the counter was a woman in her mid-50s, thin, with hair dyed a brittle red. Her lipstick was smeared, and her smile looked more like a grimace. "Checking in?" she asked, her voice nasal. "Yeah, just for the night. Non-smoking if you've got it." She chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Honey, they all smell like smoke here. You'll get used to it." I forced a polite smile. She handed me a key, another real key, with a cracked plastic tag that read 12. "Upstairs, second from the end," she said. "Try to ignore the noises. Old pipes. And kids like to sneak around sometimes." The way she said that last part made my stomach twist, but I was too tired to care. Room 12 was exactly what I expected. Dim, with water stains on the ceiling, a sagging bed, and a carpet that squelched faintly under my shoes. The air reeked faintly of cigarettes and something sweeter like spoiled fruit. I tossed my duffel onto the chair, locked the door, and went straight for the bathroom. The mirror above the sink was cloudy, the glass chipped at the corners. When I turned on the light, it flickered before settling into a dull glow. The shower curtain was drawn. I pulled it back just to make sure I was alone. The tub was empty, but there were small, dark smears along the porcelain, as if someone had dragged dirty hands across it. I shut the curtain again, telling myself I didn't care. I just needed sleep. Around 1 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps above me. Heavy, slow, deliberate. But room 12 was on the top floor. At first I thought maybe I'd misremembered, but I could see the parking lot clearly through the thin curtains. I was definitely upstairs. There was no floor above me. The footsteps stopped, and for a long moment, the silence was almost worse. My heart thudded against my ribs as I lay there, straining to listen. Then came a soft tap, tap, tap against the wall behind the headboard. I sat up, pulse racing, and whispered into the dark. "Hello?" No answer. Just silence. Then, faintly, a giggle, high-pitched, girlish, carried on a whisper of breath. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in bed, every nerve on edge, until around 2:30, when I heard it again, this time from the bathroom, the sound of the shower curtain sliding. I forced myself to get up, to prove there was nothing there. My hands shook as I pushed the bathroom door open. The light was still off, but I could see the faint outline of the curtain swaying. I flipped the switch. The tub was empty, but now, drawn in the condensation on the mirror, were tiny handprints, too small for an adult. I backed out of the bathroom, whispering to myself, "No, no, no." That's when I saw her. In the corner of the room, near the chair where I dropped my duffel, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 8. Her hair long and tangled, her dress faded and stained. Her face wasn't right. It was pale, lips cracked, eyes too dark. She was smiling, and in her hands, she held the plastic room key, my room key. I froze. My mouth went dry. She tilted her head, giggled softly. Then in a voice that sounded like dry leaves whispering across pavement, she said, "You shouldn't be here." The key slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the floor, and in that instant, the lights went out. The entire room was swallowed in darkness. I scrambled for my phone, fumbling with trembling fingers until the flashlight flared to life. The beam cut across the bed, the walls, the carpet. The girl was gone. But the bathroom door was now wide open, the shower curtain closed, and from behind it, I heard breathing. Slow, wet, rasping breaths. I didn't wait. I grabbed my duffel, bolted out the door, and sprinted down the outside stairs 2 at a time. My car keys shook in my hand as I shoved them into the ignition, peeling out of the lot like something was chasing me. I didn't stop until the sun started to rise and I found a chain hotel in the next town. When the clerk asked if I'd like a room for 2 nights, I almost laughed. I wasn't planning on sleeping in a motel again anytime soon. Later, when I told a coworker about what I'd seen, he went pale. "The Highland Motor Lodge?" he said. "Man, they found a girl's body there years ago. Room 12. She'd been missing for weeks before someone left her there." He didn't need to finish. I already knew, and I'll never forget the sound of that giggle. Or the way she said, "You shouldn't be here." The man at the window. It was just after midnight when I pulled into the Bluebird Inn, a squat L-shaped motel off Highway 60. I hadn't planned on staying there, in fact. I'd promised myself I'd push through the night and finish the drive to Dallas. But when the rain started hammering down and the highway became a blur of slick pavement and white spray, I gave in. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel, and the thought of a hot shower and 6 hours of sleep was irresistible. The place looked half abandoned. Only a few rooms glowed with dim yellow light, and the office had a hand-painted sign in the window, "Vacancy, low weekly rates." I told myself it didn't matter. I only needed 1 night. The clerk was a man in his 60s, rail-thin with leathery skin and watery blue eyes. He smelled faintly of cigarettes and disinfectant. "You'll want ground floor in this weather," he rasped, sliding a key across the counter. "Room 5. Don't leave your curtains open. A lot of folks round here don't like to be looked at." His words unsettled me, though he said them casually, like a joke. I forced a smile, paid in cash, and hurried back through the rain to my car. Room 5 was nothing special. Beige walls, threadbare carpet, a bedspread with cigarette burns. The air smelled faintly of mildew, but at least it was dry. I dropped my duffel on the bed, kicked off my wet shoes, and cranked up the heater. The window looked out toward the parking lot. Rain streaked the glass, distorting the glow of the overhead lamps outside. I closed the curtains tight, remembering the clerk's words. Still, something about that warning clung to me. It must have been around 2 a.m. when I woke. At first, I didn't know why the heater was still humming, the rain still drumming on the roof. Then I heard it, a soft tapping on the window, 3 times. Slow, deliberate. I held my breath. My curtains were shut tight, but I could see the faint outline of the glass. Tap, tap, tap. "Probably a branch," I whispered, though I knew there were no trees near the building, just asphalt and rain. The sound stopped. I lay awake for what felt like hours before exhaustion dragged me under again. The next night because, yes, Against my better judgment, I decided to stay a second night. It happened again. This time, I was sitting at the desk, eating takeout noodles and scrolling on my phone when the tapping came. Not soft this time, but hard, urgent. Tap, tap, tap. I froze, chopsticks halfway to my mouth. The curtains trembled as though someone had brushed them from the outside. With shaking hands, I reached out and pulled them back a few inches. For less than a second, I saw him, a man standing in the rain, inches from the glass. His skin was gray and slack, like it didn't fit right on his bones. His eyes were pale, cloudy, and they didn't blink. His mouth hung open slightly, like he was mid-breath, and then he was gone. Just gone. The lot outside was empty. Rain splattered the pavement, but no footprints, no wet trail, nothing. I slammed the curtains shut and backed away until my calves hit the bed. I should have left. God knows why I didn't. Maybe exhaustion, maybe stubbornness, maybe just stupidity. But something kept me there for a third night. That night, I didn't bother pretending I could sleep. I sat on the bed, phone in my hand, flashlight ready. The curtains stayed closed. At 1:47 a.m., the tapping came again, but this time, it wasn't on the window. It was at the bathroom mirror. I swear to you, I heard the same rhythm. Tap, 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 as though someone was knocking from inside the glass. The air turned cold, my breath fogging in front of me. The heater was still running, but it was useless. The cold came from somewhere deeper. Slowly, against every survival instinct, I crept toward the bathroom. The mirror above the sink was cracked, cloudy with age, and in it, I saw him again. Not behind me, not in the room, in the reflection. The man's face pressed close against the other side of the glass, lips moving soundlessly, eyes staring straight into mine. I stumbled back, heart hammering, but the reflection stayed even when I ducked out of sight. The mirror rippled like water. That's when the lights cut out. The room went black. Only the sound of my ragged breathing filled the air. Then came the tapping again, this time from the window and the mirror, in perfect sync. Faster, louder. Tap, 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 tap. I couldn't take it. I grabbed my bag, bolted out the door barefoot, and ran through the rain to my car. When I turned the key, the headlights flared and for a split second illuminated room 5's window. And there he was, standing on the inside, looking out at me. I never went back for my stuff. I drove through the storm until the sky began to lighten, until my hand stopped shaking enough to grip the wheel steady. When I finally told someone, a friend who grew up in that county, he looked grim. "The Bluebird?" he asked. "Yeah, people talk about that place. They say a man was murdered in room 5 years ago. Wife found him at the window, looking out like he was waiting for someone. He was dead on his feet. I don't know what I saw, or if I was just so sleep-deprived I hallucinated the whole thing. But I'll tell you this, I don't stay at motels anymore. And sometimes, late at night, when it's raining, I'll hear it again. That slow, deliberate sound. Tap, tap, tap.